I think people are so afraid for a number of reasons. I mean, it's not just stage fright we're talking about. We're talking about,
Hmm.
what are your peers going to think? If I say the wrong thing, if I make a mistake. And, I always ask the question, well, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision-making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jody Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. This is part 1 of my interview with Julia Langley. My next guest comes from a family of musicians. I can relate to that, and has been on stage since the age of 2. She has performed in musical theater and performed her own original show throughout the U.S. She eventually made her way into Cirque du Soleil and performed with them as a featured singer in 16 different countries and all 50 states over a period of 17 years. One of the things she's most passionate about is helping others unleash their power by discovering and learning to properly use their voice. She teaches speakers and singers special techniques that will enhance their voice in a way that commands the stage and increases their success. In 2019, she was hit by a Jeep while riding her bicycle, and she's been recovering gradually from the many surgeries after that, along with understanding her PTSD from the ordeal. She speaks out about that so that others can better understand the difficulties faced by those who struggle with PTSD. She believes she was given a second chance to help others find their own strength and resilience, to make sure their unique talents are shared with the world. Her name is Julia Langley, and just from her bio, you can probably tell this is going to be quite the conversation. I hope you enjoy this discussion as much as I did. Thank you so much for joining me today, Julia. I know we had a little bit of a interesting start.
Yes, we did. But, what's a new adventure? I love adventures, so
It's all good. It's all
That's
good.
right.
We're all learning.
That's exactly right. Every day is a new experience.
Yep.
So
Brave new world.
Yes, that's how I look at it. Everything I come in contact with is a new adventure and a learning experiment, if you will.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. So what is going on in your world right now? How are you doing?
I have a lot going on, actually. This past year, 2020, has just been such a pivotal year for me. I know it has been for a lot of people, but I was coming off a really tough year in 2019. I have been working for Cirque du Soleil for about 17 years, and I have had a great singing career when I traveling the world with them. And when I wasn't doing that, I am performing throughout the U.S. and Canada. And in 2019, I had a really bad accident where I was hit by a car. So it sort of stopped me in my tracks. And I spent a year actually not really working at all because I was physically not able to work. So my quarantine, if you will, for lack of a better word, actually started in March of 2019.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
You've been going through this doubly long.
Hey,
wow.
when the COVID hit, I was actually already, I was like, oh, well, my life hasn't really changed that much. But
I guess not.
I really didn't, because I had already sort of learned how to adapt and overcome that. And really and truly, I had started a process of reinvention of my career and myself before that anyway. I've been the singer for a really long time. I've also had an academy where I work with aspiring performers, and I was really looking to expand that, to look into new areas, to do some things to challenge myself and really to grow my business. So I feel like after the accident, and I did get physically better, I had a couple of surgeries, and after recovering from that, I felt like the COVID quarantine actually gave me the time I needed to really pivot and put my focus in the areas that I needed to go. So I've really expanded, and now I'm focusing a lot on singing for speakers, singing for healing, and I still do work with top-notch achieving singers that really want to work professionally or audition people who really have big goals and want to be better at their craft.
Yeah, I love that.
So these are my focuses right now.
So I wanted to ask you a little more about singing for speakers. How does that
Yes.
work exactly? What are you telling people to do that'll help them become a better speaker?
Well, what people don't really understand is that a lot of the techniques that we use as we sing and perform, we use in speech every single day. And the exercises that we do, they're the same. And what they're teaching is actually these exercises are teaching you how to breathe correctly, how to use your diaphragm, how to project, how to have clarity when you're speaking. And it's not just technique. It also goes into a little bit more of a psychological thing too, where, you know, what is your tone? What are you trying to convey to other people? Are you sounding condescending and you don't really mean to sound that way? Are you speaking with a lack of confidence? Maybe you think you're confident, but you're not coming across that way. So these are all.
I want to sort of get back to that actually, because
Sure.
the confidence thing is something people ask me a lot about. Is there a way that you think people can help with their confidence in their voice, just like that helps them psychologically? Are there exercises? Is there anything you particularly teach in that regard?
Yes. And one of the things I say about confidence, and as a vocal coach, I have said for years that I am more of a therapist than I am
Yeah.
a vocal teacher. And that's kind of tongue in cheek, really. But
Sure.
it is sort of true because I get so many people that come through that door that have a lot of skill. Just natural, raw talent. And they can't even look the world in the face. They can't hold their head up. They're scared to use their voice, whether it's singing, whether it's speaking. And that's the first step. The first step is knowing that what you have to say is important, knowing that your voice, the world needs to hear your voice, and starting to believe that. So it actually starts mentally and in trying new things. That is one of the biggest things to me. I think people are so afraid for a number of reasons. I mean, it's not just stage fright we're talking about. We're talking about, you know, what are your peers going to think? If I say the wrong thing, if I make a mistake. And, you know, I always ask the question, well, what's the worst thing that can happen?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the worst thing that can happen? And if you mess up, like what do you say, you know? And my students they stop and they think and they're like, oh, well, I guess yeah.
I guess it's not that bad.
It's not that bad, really, when you think about it. You can't be afraid, though, to make the mistakes because that's how you learn. So from a confidence standpoint, there is no greater way of learning it than just doing it. And you have to start. So I have a list of things, actually. And at the top of that list is just starting. You have to go, you know, you have to go and do it. And that is what I say. That's your first step. And then as you go, you start to learn. You start to learn what works and what doesn't work. And you have to do a lot of self introspection and really listening to yourself and what you're saying. And this is where a lot of times a vocal coach can come in and help the situation so much, because sometimes we have a totally misconstrued idea of what we sound like or how we're coming across to other people we don't know. And when you work with another coach or with a coach, they can actually say, hey, this is a way you can improve. This is something that you're doing really well. And maybe we expand that part of what you're doing and really, you know, work with your strengths here, minimize the weaknesses and work with your strengths. And as a vocal coach, that's really what I try to do, is help people really find their own niche, their own authenticity, and helping them to use their voice to demonstrate that to others.
I love that. And a lot of it is mindset. I love that it's that too. I mean, yeah. I'm curious as to, I'm curious about if there's any case studies that you have that you could talk about, like any stories of someone who came to you and just
blossomed.
Oh, absolutely. And I have actually a couple. One of a great success story that I actually have is one of my students. She was an amazing singer and still is. She's a jazz singer, a low, beautiful, sultry voice. And on top of that, she's tall and stunning. All right. Gorgeous girl.
The
Everybody
whole
wants
package.
to. Yes. She has everything in the world going for her. And when she walked in the door for her first vocal lesson, her hair was down in her face and she could not even, she looked at her feet the entire time. And this goes back to what we were talking about with the confidence, and we started working together and we went through these strengths. I started telling her, look, these things you're doing really, really well. Let's focus on those. Let's refine those, make them even better. Let's take some of these things we're not so good at and start working on how do you work with those things that you're not so good at, because they're still there.
Yeah.
But, it's shifting what you're doing and what you're focusing on. And so we started doing that. And lo and behold, she became the lead singer for her big band at school, the jazz frontman, if you will. Then her senior year, she received the Palm Beach County Pathfinders Award, which is the Palm Beach Post gives a big scholarship every year for an outstanding senior.
Wow.
Then she received a jazz scholarship to the Frost School of Music in Miami, which is private school. It's huge. The Frost School of Music is one of the best jazz schools in the country. Not only that, she left there. She graduated from Miami, and she's in New York working as we speak.
Wow.
And guess what? She's looking the world in the face and taking on New York City, which is about as, that's about as brave as as you can be.
I hope she's doing okay now, because I know that circumstances have changed a little and it's a bit strange out there right now for live music.
It's very hard, and this is where the reinvention comes in. But it goes back to confidence and believing that you can reinvent yourself, that you're not just dead in the water. If your gig got canceled, there are other things that you can do. And I'm big on resilience. Really, really big on resilience being a huge part of it. It is a huge part of my life. And I really try to instill in my clients the importance of being resilient, especially if you are putting yourself out there to the world in a performance capacity, because it's not all roses. It's not always it's not always a utopia. More times than not, it's tough. It's tough, and you have to develop those skills along with believing in yourself and the confidence to keep going when things don't really seem like they're going your way. Like right now in this situation with COVID, so many entertainers have been just stopped in their tracks, and it's been hard.
I know that we're all dealing with a lot of stuff these days, so I particularly wanted to acknowledge those that have taken the time to leave honest reviews of this podcast. Skyle Renee, I think it's Renee, it's spelled R-E-N-E, so that's what I'm going to go with. I hope I got it right. Had this to say: worth it. This podcast is so good that I just want to sit and stay in my car a little longer. Thanks, Jody. You're very welcome, Skyle. And thank you so much for taking the time to write a review. Now, back to the show. I was going to ask you actually how that changed how you teach, because there must be different things you're telling people right now than you were, prior to 2018, let's say.
Oh, it's so true. But it's been great for me because it's been a challenge, and I like a challenge. I had already started to transition my coaching to online before because of my accident. It had put me in a position that I had to. So I wanted to make this transition. COVID gave me the chance to go from driving everywhere and seeing people to actually doing online work. And I feel like it's even made me a better coach. Just streamlining everything, vocal exercises, providing ways that access to information online that people can access a lot easier, actually. So that's been the transition for me, and it's going so well. I have a full list of clients at this point. Is going terrific. Yeah, so
That's great.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, yeah. You had mentioned some warm-up exercises for speakers, I think, the last time that we had spoken. And since, I mean, I know there are some musicians who listen here, and that's great, but I think the majority of people who are listening are probably speakers as opposed to singers.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if you could give them some hints as to, how they could help themselves before they actually, it wouldn't even be on stage right now. I'm assuming it's actually virtual conferences and virtual speaking engagements at this point still. Although I think it's starting to open up a little bit in certain places. So
yes,
yeah.
it does seem to be opening up. One of my entertainer friends said he's actually doing 5 shows this week, 5 nights of work. So that's pretty amazing here in Florida.
That is great.
He said it's not the norm, but it just happened that way this week. So that's really good. But I do have some exercises that I can give. And for you speakers out there, I want to very quickly talk about some of the things that I address in these coaching sessions. One is breath, and it's very, very important that we use our breath when we're speaking or when we're singing to project, for vocal strength, for a whole lot, just for tone. It's really the basis, the foundation of building what I call the house of sound. And that breath is the foundation. So I do breathing exercises using the diaphragm. I teach people how to do that. We work on tone, we work on clarity. And the first exercise that I would like to give you is a very simple exercise. Most everyone knows their ABCs. And so one of the things that I do starting out is have people start reciting their ABCs and see how long they can go without breathing.
Yeah.
It's harder than you think, too.
Yeah.
And the singers can use this exercise as well, just because, and actually changing tones as we go. So, and I have another exercise that I can give that has some tone relationships in it too. But starting with this ABC exercise is just as simple as taking a very deep breath from your abdomen, from your belly, blow it up like a balloon, using that diaphragm, and then going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. And then keep going and try to get through it 3 times. If you can.
Okay, yeah. That's a lot. 3 times.
It is a lot.
And you're actually really enunciating there and taking time with the letters. Like, it's not just, motoring through.
Absolutely. And I say that on a daily basis. I get the ABC. Yeah, I'm like, come on. Use your mouth.
You can do better than that. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's so true. We're using our muscles in our face, our muscles in our diaphragm. And that's another thing that people forget when they're speaking, when they're singing, is that it's a workout. It is a workout. And you don't believe me? Go give a talk for an hour or 2. Go do a cabaret show for 45 minutes. I'm going to tell you, you'll get your workout in for the day. But that's because it is physical. And people they just don't always make that connection in their head. It is such a physical thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an amazing exercise and something
really
to definitely think about. Yeah. Are there any others that you could share, or tips for better communicating as well is always appreciated. I'm sure a lot of people who listen are very interested in making sure they get their point across and that they come across as, a decent human and, all of these things, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. And, one of the thing that singing teaches you is to use your listening skills. And this is something else that, you often hear that people listen to respond. They don't really listen to listen.
Yeah.
Singing teaches you to listen, if that makes sense, to use your ears to actually hear what's going on in the music and how you respond with the music, how you work with the music. You know, the music's not in a vacuum and you aren't either. It has to work together jointly. So we call this ear training in singing, where you can identify different sounds. I remember one time when I was working for Cirque du Soleil, it was very early in my career. The music director, or actually it was the choreographer, said, she was giving me blocking, and she said, I want you to move on the count of whatever you'll move on the count of 5, actually. And I said, oh, is that where the strings come in? Mm-hmm. And she just stopped and looked at me and she goes, no one has ever said that to me before.
Really? No one?
No one.
Oh my goodness.
And she said, yes, that's where the strings come in the music. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I know where to go. I knew exactly where to move because I could hear the movement in the music. I knew what was happening at that time. So this is a really, really important skill, the listening skills that it teaches us, and how to use our ear. And then execution. How do we respond to the sounds that we're actually hearing? Yeah. Those sounds that are coming in. So
there's a lot that goes into it, and active listening is really important for interviewing too. So
absolutely.
If people are conducting interviews on podcasts or that kind of thing, this might be helpful to them too.
It's exactly right. And really listening to what's going on and what's happening around you. And it is interesting being in this business for so many years. And Jody, you maybe have the same thing, because I know that you listen to sounds all day. I go to dinner, right? I go to dinner, and if there is too many things going on, I tend to just tune them out. So because what's happening is that I am filtering every single sound and every single conversation that's going on in the room, because that's what my brain is trained to do. Sure. So, having said that, it kind of works against me when I'm in a huge noisy room, but at the same time, it's a really good skill to have, because you can really focus in on what you need to be listening for and prioritize those sounds in a way that are useful to you in a performance capacity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for Cirque, it was really important, because you want to make sure you don't get kicked in the head, run over, because you want to be singing and listening and watching, using all your senses.
It could have been dangerous, yes.
Oh, it has been before. I have stories for days on that one.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I do want to hear more, and I think it would be fun for us to talk about that. But I don't want to get too far off the point of vocal warm-ups for speakers. Like I just, because if you can give any more of that would be fantastic. Because I derailed you.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry. I just get when I start thinking about some of these things I've learned through the years have been learned hard way. So, it's
we
funny.
all do.
But I have another exercise, and this one is actually a little bit more difficult than the first exercise, because this one requires a tone with it. All right. So we're training our brain to really think. One thing that, on a side note here, one thing that I did learn, of course, music affects 12 different parts of our brains.
Wow. And
yes, 12 different parts. Professional singers actually use one part of the brain, and amateur singers, okay, so let me say this. Professional singers use their occipital lobe, all right?
Okay.
Which is visual. Mm-hmm. Amateur singers have not learned that skill, so they use their temporal lobe in their brain, all right? So one of the things that I try to teach when I teach aspiring speakers or singers, performers in general, is to use their occipital lobe, to use visual ideas and attach them to sounds. So for example, and I'm not getting off track here, I'm going to get back to this exercise, but it's very important that we visualize what I'm going to teach you here. Because it's like, tone is like going up the stairs. And when we learn to execute a tone, we have to think about going up the stairs or coming down the stairs. So this exercise is a movement up and down a staircase, if you will. So if you can visualize that as you start to step up the staircase, and then as we come back down, it will actually help you in creating these particular sounds. So the exercise goes like this. It goes 1 1 1 1, 2 2 2 2, 1 1 1 1, 3 3 3 3, 1 1 1 1, 4 4 4 4, 5 4 3 2 1 5 1. All right.
Whoa.
So, yeah. So we're jumping up and down these stairs. So you have to think about the first step as being the 1, the second step as being the 2 as we go up. And then as we come back down, you're coming back down that staircase. All right. So this is what it takes, using that occipital lobe to really think about how we're doing movement with sound. So let's start with a tone. All right. 1 1 1 1 2 2 2 2 1 1 1 1 3 3 3 3 1 1 1 1 4 4 4 4 5 4 3 2 1 5 1.
Okay.
And then you can move.
Yeah.
1 1 1 1 2 2 2 2 1 1 1 1 3 3 3 3 1 1 1 1 4 4 4 4 5 4 3 2 1 5 1.
Yeah, I love it.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, just because even if you have problems with pitch, that doesn't matter, okay? The point of the exercise is to start to recognize the differences in the levels of the tones as far as the pitch goes, up and down. Are we speaking in a low tone? Are we speaking in a high tone? Because those levels give different they give different messages to your audience. I mean, when you're speaking like this all the time, I mean, you're in a courtroom. Or is anybody really going to listen to you? I mean, yeah, do you really want to sound like that? Or do you want to speak with authority? Do you want to project? Or do you want to sound soft and kind? We choose what we put out there.
Yeah.
So pitch is very important. Learning those intervals and sound is very important. And this also teaches breath control as well.
Are you looking for ways to improve your company's or podcast's impact? You'd be surprised how powerful the use of an intentional audio branding strategy can be. Want to know more? I have a free downloadable PDF that gives you my 5 tips for implementing an intentional audio strategy at voiceoversandvocals.com/audio-branding-strategy. That location does ask to put you on a mailing list, just to send you updates on when the new podcasts come out. But if you really don't want to give your email out, I understand. Just contact me directly. My email is all over my website, and I'll make sure you get that PDF without needing to sign up anywhere. If you do sign up, though, you also get access to a resources section called The Studio, where I have videos, white papers, and PDFs, discounts from my guests, and snippets of audio from my guests that no one else gets to hear. So maybe it's worth your while. Totally up to you. And of course, if you're looking for voiceovers, you can get in touch with me about that too. Now, back to the podcast.
Yeah,
So-
I love that.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense to me because I don't read music at all. And so when I'm singing, when I'm performing with a band,
Right.
if I'm looking at the lyrics, because I have all sorts of memory for the notes. I don't have any memory for the lyrics.
I'm
It's like I
terrible
can't
with
do
them.
both at the same time. Like, I don't know what it is. It's because I don't have the crutch of having the music notes on the page, right? So I
Right.
have to memorize all that. But if I want to move from a pitch to from like a tone or a pitch to something else, I draw arrows all over the place, like
That
or
works for you.
stairs, Yeah, but it relates the visuals to the sound that I need to make. And those are my shorthand notes for, what a high C would be, or I don't know, whatever. But,
That's right.
makes no sense to me. But if I draw it.
Well, it's so true, and I'm the visual part of it. It's just a really, really important part of singing, because singing's abstract. When I teach piano, which I play classical piano, when I teach piano, that it's right there in front of you and it's structured, and I can pick someone's hands up, or I can tell them I can move them, but I cannot put my hand down somebody's throat and move their vocal cords around or move their face, So it's really, really abstract. And when you can make it a lot more tangible or visual, where they can actually see these things and connect those images, it makes it a lot easier to execute than without.
Yeah, definitely. I can see.
So you're a professional, Jody. You're a professional singer. See, you're using your occipital lobe.
I had to adapt, that's what happens.
That's right.
I've never read music. I never learned. But I was doing the alto part in my quartet in jazz in high school. So,
That's right.
The teacher was kind enough, and this was way back when. So he would put on a tape. He would play it on a piano for me. He'd play what I needed to memorize to sing as the alto part, which never was the tune.
It's hard.
The alto part was, it was really kind of difficult. And so I would memorize what he played on the piano and put on tape for me, and then I'd go and use it in practice when we were having our practices. And
well, you know what that's called? That's called learning by ear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You learned by ear. Like what we were talking about earlier. You trained that ear to really hear the differences in the sound and know that your pitch, more than likely, not always, is a third down from what the sopranos are singing.
Yes, exactly. It was really fun to hear how it all worked together, though, because often the chord made was a little bit dissonant, which I really kind of liked. That was really, and it was because of me, right?
That's right.
But it worked.
It does work. I love it. And I love that you know that. I like that you notice those things, because those beautiful chords and those harmonies that you're talking about, that's what gives people like Andrew Lloyd Webber, Puccini, the great opera writer, it's what gives those people makes them such amazing composers, is using all of those different sounds and those chords. And Stephen Sondheim, he can make make you love dissonance, Two notes that shouldn't go together, and they do go together, and he makes them work. It's a little bit of brilliance. It is, actually.
Yeah, I really appreciate that in composers. Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
I was just performing by rote, really. I mean, you can, but if you can hear it, you can make it work. But the hearing is the key, right? Like, I needed to be able to copy what I was hearing and then memorize it.
Yes.
Because I didn't have the notes on paper to guide me. So, but also it's in relation to other people, right? Because it's not just memorizing those notes, but what was keeping me on those notes was knowing how that all worked with what everyone else was doing around me.
Absolutely. This is what I was talking about with that exercise I gave too, those intervals between the notes. You knew that the sopranos were ah, and you knew that's not your note, and you had to be lower than that. So you ah, so you're going to sing a third down, which is primarily what most of the time altos do. But and why is this important for speakers? It's just really important. Again, understanding what these different tones, the distances between the tones, and what the tones are saying to other people.
Yeah.
So it's important for speakers to understand tone and how to use it to their advantage. Just to relate that as far as to speakers as well.
Sure.
This has been part 1 of our interview. I hope you'll tune in next week for part 2. Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time,